I hope all of you are having a fantastic Monday, wherever you may be across this great country or this great land. A bunch of different things to get into, but we got the Outkick jury waiting to weigh in on Luka Doncic putting Montrezl Harrell in. Put him to sleep. I don't know what you want to say. That was the ultimate response to Montrezl Harrell calling Luka a bitch-ass white boy. The bitch-ass white boy went off in a way that has never happened before, literally, in the history of an NBA playoff game. Luka, first player with 43-plus points, 17-plus rebounds, and 13-plus assists in a playoff game in NBA history. That, again, has never occurred. Arguably as good of a playoff performance as we have ever seen. The only other player with that many points, rebounds, and assists in a regular season game was Wilt Chamberlain, who did it back in 1968. And only 3 players in the history of the NBA have ever recorded 14, 15, and 10 in an NBA playoff game. Oscar Robertson back in 1963 and Charles Barkley back in 1993, which is pretty wild to think about. It has been, the math is even hard on that, 27 years since anybody in the NBA has done what Luka did yesterday afternoon. So we are asking the question, what should the NBA's response have been for Montrezl Harrell calling Luka a bitch-ass white boy? We got a loaded Outkick jury pool ready to weigh in. Also, by the way, in this hour, I want to dive into a couple of additional questions out there. Big Ten athletic directors, 14-0, were in favor of playing the college football season, 14-0. And this is a big story that I'm surprised is not getting more attention. In the NFL testing protocols for the coronavirus, 77 players tested falsely positive. 77 players representing 10 or 11 different teams. How many people out there are testing false positive for the coronavirus? The only reason why these NBA players, we found out that they weren't positive, is because they had the resources to immediately get tested anew, and they could figure out that all of these results were false positives. 77 of them. It's crazy. It's a wild story. But we begin with the Outkick jury weighing in with our poll question. If you can't call in, you can certainly go vote. Over 7,000 of you have voted. Should Montrezl Harrell have been fined and or suspended by the NBA for calling Luka, quote, a bitch-ass white boy? 75% of you say yes. That music in the background you hear is the People's Court. Outkick is the People's Court as well. Dub, you have got everybody lined up. We will allow the jury now to weigh in what should have happened to Montrezl Harrell for calling Luka a bitch-ass white boy. Should the NBA have fined and or suspended him? Who's up first, Dub?
We got Mike in Las Vegas.
Mike in Vegas. Should they have fined or suspended him?
Of course they should have, and I will submit to you, Clay, and the audience, that Adam Silver is the weakest commissioner when it comes to fair punishment. That if it would have been an African American, a white person saying a racial epithet against a African American, there would have been, as you asserted, a suspension. And one other thing, in the post-game show on TNT, Charles Barkley tried to make that exact opinion that you put in there, and he was shut down and overtalked by Kenny Smith and by Ernie to a degree, and by Shaquille, saying that this is just what goes on. And you could get that post-game analysis, but Chuck tried 3, 4, and 5 times to say that this is not appropriate, and he was just shut down like there was a producer in his earpiece. It is just
That's interesting. I didn't hear it. Yeah, thank you for the call. I didn't hear that. Anybody else hear Charles Barkley try to argue for a suspension or a fine? The reason why I like Barkley and we would get along very well is we both say exactly what we think. And I've met Charles several times. I've been out to dinner with him a few times, and he's the exact same person. face-to-face as he is on television, which is why he's good on television. And frankly, that's why I think I'm good on radio and television, because I'm pretty much the exact same person face-to-face as I am on the radio. I don't tiptoe up to my opinions. But because there is a consistency and logic to Charles Barkley's opinions too. And this is what gets my critics upset is you got to be like a judge, in my opinion, to be an intelligent person in today's lifestyle. And if you truly want equality, you have to apply equal rules to everyone. You can't play identity politics and protect Montrezl Harrell because he's black and not have treated him the exact same way as you would Luka if they said the exact same insult. And by the way, I think the same thing should be true if it was a Yao Ming insult or a Jeremy Lin insult. And by the way, just because that's the way it is, isn't a defense that something is right. Okay? Somebody saying, well, that's just the way it is in basketball. Well, things are oftentimes the way they are and they're wrong, right? I mean, so defending something as, well, that's just the way it is oftentimes the worst argument you can make, because it presumes that just because something is bad, it shouldn't change because it's always been that way. Not to say that everything has to be changed, but just that's not a good defense. That's how it is on the basketball court. Well, that's how it is on the basketball court because we've set the precedent that that is permitted, right? If you're trying to eliminate, gay slurs. Look, when I played basketball growing up, gay slurs were common. I don't know about kids play today, but it was common to call, to insult kids with gay slurs. We didn't really know what it was, right? Like I played, and I bet a lot of you did too, like we played Smear the Queer, right? Like that was literally a game that we played, and none of us even knew what Smear the Queer meant. But we would play, and I bet a lot of you did who are around my age too, the kid who has the football gets crushed. Like that was right. That was Smear the Queer. Somebody gets it. People try to grab him. People try to tackle him. Then that guy throws it away. Whoever picks up the football, the next person tries to tackle. Everybody play that game on the show?
Yeah. And
my
mom.
Did you call it Smear the Queer?
Oh, for sure we did. And my mom, who corrected us on everything, to be fair to all people, all nationalities, she didn't correct us on that.
And none of us knew, right? Like I didn't know what Smear the Queer meant. And I guess you could argue that queer just means different person, right? Like not in the context of gay. But later I was like, oh, that clearly means you're supposed to just crush the gay person, right? I don't know if kids still play Smear the Queer. I would doubt it. And I think if you did it on like a modern day campus, you'd probably get in severe trouble. Did you play, Dub, you're 25. Did you ever hear that phrase?
Yeah, we were playing that game on the playground growing up as well. And like you said, no idea what it meant.
Yeah, right. Eddie Garcia and Roberto, you guys play as well?
Yep, 100%.
Okay. So that probably, I would imagine, like if for my kids, if I saw them playing that game and they were calling it that, I'd be like, hey, guys, we need to come up with another word.
Yeah, it's just like how schools went to crisscross applesauce.
Instead of Indian style?
Instead of Indian style, because when we were kids, sit Indian style, you little brats.
I don't understand, to be fair, why sitting Indian style is an insult.
Yeah, I don't either.
I understand you're right that crisscross applesauce is now what they say, and obviously that rhymes a lot better. But I don't the reason why people would sit Indian style, first of all, do only Indians sit with their legs crossed? I don't know why that phrase came around. Like, that's a pretty comfortable way, it seems, to sit, especially when you're a kid. But, yes, you're right. They have replaced Indian style in schools with crisscross applesauce. I would say there's a difference between Indian style, where I don't imagine there are a ton of people who are offended by that. But probably a lot of gay people are like, yeah, I wish you didn't play a football game called Smear the Queer, where you try to destroy the person who has the ball, right? So my point on that is sometimes things that we do in sports – in retrospect, we're like, yeah, that probably should change the way we refer to that, right? So that's something that is an example that everybody on this show played, and I bet a bunch of you kids out there listening have never heard of before. I would bet this is much less common, but you did it not intending to be offensive, which is the opposite of Montrezl Harrell, but you just did it. It was a casual homophobia, right? And in retrospect, that's something probably that shouldn't exist because of that exact reason. It's a casual homophobia which builds in the idea that that is an appropriate and normal response to someone who is different, right? When you really unpack where that name comes from. And this is, to me, by Montrezl Harrell, an example of casual racism. It's a race-based insult that may well have existed in basketball for a long time, but that doesn't make it right. Okay, so we have one vote in the Outkick jury for yes on fine or suspension. Who's up next? People's Court music in the background. Who's up next, Dub?
We got Thomas in California.
Thomas, what do you think?
I think Montrezl Harrell should be suspended. And let me just add one thing. I know it's two completely different sports, but when you take a look at Yuri Gurriel of the Houston Astros, and he made that gesture in regards to
that's a
garbage,
good point. The Chinese eyes.
Right, exactly. So I don't know exactly how the NBA would handle it if he's going to get a suspension the following year, but I think they should definitely suspend him for some sort of amount of time. And I think it's pretty ridiculous, the double standard that's being set here. I think it should be one standard for everybody, period.
Yeah, I agree. What was the suspension? You guys remember that? I forgot about that.
7 games the following year.
7 games the following year for making an eye slant gesture, right? Was that what he did? And he was in the dugout? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, right after he hit a home run.
Okay, so 7 games. All right, that's not a bad analogy. And I think most people would probably say, yeah, he deserved to get suspended for that. That was clearly a race-based insult, same way to me as Montrezl Harrell. Good recall there by a caller. Who's up next?
We got GW in Cincinnati.
All right, what's the opinion?
Clay, how you doing, man? I appreciate you taking my call.
Yeah, doing well.
I don't agree. I don't agree with a suspension. I would maybe do a fine just to make people like you happy. But quite honestly, I think this is a case where Clay, and you're my guy, man, but I think you don't understand the culture. And I think what Danny G brought up, if you listen to Doug Gottlieb, that's more of what's going on in basketball today. If he had just called him, say, shut your bitch ass up, when they're at the free throw line, then would that still been a finable offense or even a suspension? That's just basketball trash talk.
That's right. But I think there's a difference between shut your bitch ass up and shut your bitch ass white ass up.
I know, but Clay, you mentioned like you have Hispanic men of Hispanic descent in your studio with you. I can guarantee you, those guys, if they were the only Hispanic dudes on the court, they're probably like, "Ooh, that Mexican is killing you," or shut your bitch ass up.
Hold on. That's a different. Like that Mexican is killing you. That white boy is killing you is a positive statement. Thanks for the call. The difference here is when you say bitch ass white boy, all 4 of those words are designed to be insults. If somebody says, man, you better play better defense, that white boy is killing you, that is not an insult. That's an insult at you, right? Like, hey, you better play defense, that white guy is roasting you, or that Mexican guy is roasting you, or that Asian dude is killing you. You better pick up that Chinese dude. He's raining threes on your ass. That's not an insult, right? I would say that there's probably a lot of white people who wouldn't say, hey, you better pick up that black guy. He's killing you, because they'd be like, oh, if you reference somebody's race and you're a white guy, it's racist, even if it's a descriptor. I remember when I worked back in the day, first job I ever had, I worked at second job I ever had. Second job I ever had was in an American Eagle store. And we had one black guy who worked on the American Eagle staff. And I don't know, there's probably 10 or 12 of us who worked there overall. This black guy worked with us. When you would ring people up, I always love this. It's an interesting psychological examination. When you would ring people up, you would say, hey, did anybody help you? And you were supposed to get your commissions were supposed to be tracked, right? To see how much you were helping in the store. No white person would ever say, the black guy helped me. They'd be like, yeah, I think he was in a blue shirt. And I'd be like, you mean the black guy? Yeah, the black. The only black guy working in the store, when we were at the counter registering who was getting credit for helping, the white person at the store would always, almost always, describe the black guy as something other than their race. Because I suspect they were so afraid of being racist to notice that the person who helped them was black, they'd be like, yeah, it was the guy, he had on jeans and a blue shirt. Oh, the black guy? Yeah, it was the black guy. But they would never, ever say, oh, yeah, the black guy was helping me. And I think it's because white people are so terrified of being called racist that even noticing that somebody who was helping them who was black, this was a positive thing, they wouldn't even say it. So when you say bitch-ass white boy, all four of those words are included together as an insult. That's why they're all put together. If he had said, man, you're a bitch, I don't think anybody would have any problem with it. Now, maybe some of you out there are like, well, actually, it's insulting for a man to refer to another man as a bitch because he's emasculating him by equating femininity with weakness. That's the next level of woke, right? That's the next level of woke. In like 10 years, it's going to be an insult for one man to call another man a bitch, and it's going to be unacceptable. That's where we're headed. But right now, we're not there. So if he called him a bitch, I don't think anybody would complain, by and large. But you call him a bitch-ass white boy, that's a racial slur, racial insult. Who's up next, in my opinion? So we got 2-1. What did GW say? Did he say he would fine him? Maybe so people like me would stop complaining? I just want equal treatment. I just want, if you're going to have rules, then I want them to be applied evenly to all people, black, white, Asian, Hispanic. If we're going to police language on a basketball court, then I think all rules should be the same. And I don't think anybody's doubting that if Luka Doncic had called Montrezl Harrell a bitch-ass black boy, it would be the number one story in America today. And Luka would be suspended probably for the rest of the playoffs. Who's up next?
We got Mike in Dallas.
Mike, what's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm on my new AirPods, but I won from taking the Mavs on the money line tonight.
Have you been up for like 64 consecutive hours?
Yeah, and I've been waiting on the line for about 2.
Yeah, well, that's not true. But okay, so what's your point here?
Well, I think that if you want to talk about why the NBA is trying to go towards equality, you have to at least go back to Kaepernick.
What?
Yeah, I think we should go to the next
Hold
line.
on. No. I actually, what is your argument? Colin Kaepernick is somehow involved here?
Yeah, I think that the reason why Black Lives Matter got some exposure is because of Kaepernick.
Uh-huh. Well, how does that have to do at all with our question here?
Well, so then you're saying that, okay, why are the NBA players wearing equality on their backs and want to preach equality, and then they're not going to get upset because Montrezl Harrell was aggressive with his language? And I think that the time that you're spending talking about what someone said during a game, that time would be better spent talking about what Kaepernick was kneeling for.
Okay, so you waited, and how long were you on hold? You waited we specifically said to callers, hey, we want you to weigh in with this particular question, and you called in to say that you're a Colin Kaepernick supporter. By the way, I got to be honest with you, this is how I think, thanks for the call. This is how I think of all Colin Kaepernick supporters. They just are so obsessed with Colin Kaepernick that something that has zero to do with Colin Kaepernick. That guy called in to wait for over an hour to say, in his mind, this was all about Colin Kaepernick. This is how I see the Kaepernick stands in life. Like, you're like, hey, man, can you pass the ketchup? And the Kaepernick dude is like, well, you know, Colin Kaepernick was really good back in that game against the 49ers 8 years ago. And against did you see Colin Kaepernick 8 years ago against the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs? You're like, dude, I just asked if you could pass the ketchup. We're watching a game. I want to put some ketchup on my hot dog. Hey, can we get some more chips? You know, speaking of chips, Colin Kaepernick was really good back when he was beating out Blaine Gabbert. Like, dude, I didn't even mention Colin. Like, I just asked if you could get me some chips. Can I get some more jalapenos on my nachos? Speaking of jalapenos, did you know that Colin Kaepernick was the first quarterback to ever throw for 300 yards and run for it? It's like Colin Kaepernick dudes can turn any conversation into Colin Kaepernick. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like it in sports. Hey, look, there's the cotton candy man. Speaking of cotton candy, do you remember when Colin Kaepernick's jersey was the number one selling jersey? It's like, dude, I just want some cotton candy. That's the Colin Kaepernick crew. Who's up next on the Outkick jury?
Yeah, we got JV in Louisville.
JV in Louisville. What you got for me?
Hey, man, it's an honor to talk to next for Rush Limbaugh, Sports Talk Radio. I think that the guy ought to say, Luka ought to say to Montrez, hey, guess what? My name is Karma, and I'm your bitch. You're my bitch. Because Montrezl Harrell was here at Louisville. I'm a big Louisville fan, and he was caught up in that Katina Powell thing, and he actually slept with her when he came on a recruiting visit, and that's probably why he came here. And Katina wouldn't make him captain of the team. He's a very rugged player. He's tough. But I think he should get a dose of his own medicine, and I'm so tired of this double standard. I'm 55 years old. I've seen all the changes in the workplace. I've had more women and minority bosses in the last 25 years than I have had white bosses. We have come so far, and yet they're going to tell us that we haven't come anywhere with this stuff. And some of the guys are being humble about it, but I'm just so tired of this double standard that we live in, Clay, that when you can literally not say anything and they're treated a different way than the average person is, and when is this going to stop?
Thanks for the call. I think, look, that's my point. If you want to set a precedent, then the precedent has to evenly apply to all people. We can't have speech codes on a basketball court that are determined based on your race. We can't have black privilege on a basketball court where Montrezl Harrell can insult Luka Doncic based on his race and have no penalty unless the standard is going to be Luka Doncic could do the same thing to Montrezl Harrell or to Jeremy Lin or to insert different race here. And I think everybody out there listening understands that that would not be treated the same. A couple more of your calls. The Outkick jury seems to be pretty squarely on the side of fine or suspension, but let me get a few more of the calls after Montrezl Harrell called Luka Doncic a bitch-ass white boy, later apologized, got dunked on pretty hard by that bitch-ass white boy to the tune of one of the greatest performances in NBA playoff history. I don't know if you want to poke the bear if you're Montrezl Harrell. I imagine some of Montrezl Harrell's teammates are like, thanks, dude. Thanks, dude. Way to fire up and produce the first ever 43-point, 17 rebound, 13 assist game in the history of the NBA. And at least you showed up and brought your A game. Oh, wait, Montrez, you finished with 2 points, 1 rebound, and 1 assist. So you got outpointed by 41, you got out-rebounded by 14, and you got out-assisted by 12. Otherwise, you were right there, toe-to-toe with the champ. Who's weighing in, Dub? Who's next?
Yeah, we got Art in Los Angeles.
Art in L.A., what should happen here? Should we get a fine or suspension for Montrez, the Outkick People's Court? You are a jury.
Thank you, Clay. Hey, you know what? The Clippers need to do something about this guy and kick him off the damn team. Silver doesn't have to
Are
win
you a
anything.
Clippers fan? I would be so upset if I'm a Clippers fan. We never win anything.
No.
Well,
And I will not be a Clippers fan if they don't not do this. It's already been too late. They should have done this already a long time ago. As soon as this happened.
So thanks for the call. If you are a Clipper fan, is this the most Clipper outcome imaginable? Your black basketball player insults the best white player in the league, and he proceeds to go medieval on you. As a Laker fan, Danny G, would you love anything more than the Mavs to eliminate the Clippers after the Clippers basically turned Luka into the Terminator on the basketball court?
This is very much the curse of Donald Sterling.
That would be. Oh yeah, this is interesting. I didn't even think about the fact that the Clippers had a racist owner.
Oh yeah,
and now they got a racist player who's now the curse of. Well, I don't know. This would be the curse of Donald Sterling. Although I imagine Donald Sterling is like somewhere watching these games. Is he still alive? And he's like, oh, now there's a white guy who's worth having on a team, and he's beating my team. That's the curse of Donald Sterling. It was like I remember when Iowa was playing against Stanford, and Christian McCaffrey just went off on them. He had 4,000 yards in the game, and I remember thinking Iowa football fans had to be like, there's finally an unbelievable white dude at a skill position, and how does Iowa not have him? Like Stanford, Christian McCaffrey is the highest paid running back in the history of the NFL now, but I think there was a bowl game, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody look up and see if I'm correct in this. I remember I had money on the Stanford-Iowa bowl game, and Christian McCaffrey just went off against Iowa. And I remember thinking, all the Iowa football fans, they always have the white guy who's athletic on Iowa football, the sneaky athletic white guy, the Tim Dwight of the world. And then they didn't have that guy, and he was just absolutely destroying them. And every Iowa fan had to be like, how did we miss on Christian McCaffrey? Christian McCaffrey was a 1 in a million player. He's Iowa football incarnate. The white guy who can't be defended, and we didn't get him. Am I right, by the way, about the Iowa and Stanford game? The Rose Bowl.
The Rose Bowl, yeah.
It was a Rose Bowl, right? Didn't he go off?
45-16 Stanford.
Yeah, but he went off. Christian McCaffrey went off in that Rose Bowl game. You're right. All right, who's up next, Dub?
Yeah, he started the game with a 75-yard touchdown, so
that was a good start.
It
was a good start to the game.
Yeah, up next we got Antonio in Oakland.
Antonio, what should happen?
Clay, I'm going to give him a $50K fine, reprimand him, because we know the NBA has got a double standard. One more thing, Clay. Hey, the Sacramento Kings announcer, 35 years, he even did fill-ins for Jim Rome. He lost his job over something simple, what he said. And I wish you get that guy in the air, man. 35 years NBA announcer, and he's out of the league, and guys like the NBA players can get away with whatever they want to say.
If I remember, thanks for the call. If I remember correctly, what happened there was he tweeted "All Lives Matter."
Yeah, that was Grant Napier.
Yeah, we didn't ever spend any time on that because I think there were other stories that were bigger in the world of sports around then. I don't remember what they were, but that was a couple of months ago?
Yeah.
That seems kind of crazy to me. The guy, I don't know what the backstory is on him, but he worked, if he truly worked for the team for 35 years, and then he sent a tweet where he said all lives matter and he got fired, that's pretty crazy.
I think the Kings felt some pressure because there were other stories circulating about him from former players. And so that's what put pressure on the organization.
Right. I mean, I don't know. It's like this Milbury story. Do we have the audio of that? We haven't even talked about it, but this NHL guy got fired basically for saying that there were less distractions in the bubble for NHL players. Did you see that story, Eddie?
Of course.
So I'm not an NHL guy, right? By the way, Dub, do we have everybody? Is there anybody else who wants to weigh in?
Yeah, we got one more juror left on the line.
Okay. The unanimous jury seems to have been pretty unanimous that at minimum there should have been a fine, but who's left?
Yeah, we got Kevin in L.A.
Kevin in L.A. Kevin, what do you think?
What's going on, Clay? First of all, I want to tell you did a wonderful job with your interview with the president. The only thing you messed up on, you didn't ask him to be a VIP and Outkick VIP on there. And I guarantee he would have said yes.
That would have been pretty awesome, yes.
Yeah, great job. Look, this thing's on so many levels. Look, let's just be real about it. There's a stereotype that white European players in the NBA are soft. And
I'm glad, sorry to cut you off, but I'm glad you mentioned that, which ties in with, you would probably agree with me that bitch-ass white boy is all, that also factors in. Yes, that the Euro players are soft. So the whole insult, bitch-ass white boy, is intended to be basically you're soft, in my opinion. All of those words are connected.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, Montrez, it was ignorant, but in the heat of the moment, he wasn't thinking to collect himself to not say white boy. I mean, white boy is just a term. There's a term, white boy wasted. So in the connotation that he said it, it was malicious, but there's been a lot of bad things on NBA court said,
leveled at gay people, all kinds of races. And, he probably, I would say a fine would be warranted. I mean, I think they gave him double technicals in the game, and I think Luka told him, stop flopping. And then that's when he said what he said. Look, you can't condone it. Gottlieb, I kind of agree with him. It's a basketball court. There's bad things that are going to be said, but, bitch ass white boy is a bit much, but it's in the connotation of trash talk. And
so let me just ask you this, Kevin. Let me ask you this, Kevin.
Yeah.
If Luka drains that three on Reggie Jackson, which we can be like, hey, by the way, why is Reggie Jackson on Luka instead of Kawhi, which is another debate, another question down the line. But if Luka drains that three and he says immediately, wear it, you bitch-ass black boy, and we all hear it, what happens to Luka?
I think Luka would get fined, he'd get suspended, and I think in the connotation, that would be malicious. That would be just as malicious as what Montrezl Harrell said.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying, if it's clearly the same thing, and thanks for the call, by the way, it's clearly intended to denigrate, right? Like, all of it is part of wearing that. And by the way, Luka is foreign. So it's not like Luka steps into American race relations and he spent his whole life here, right? So that would be an interesting angle of this as well. Like, Montrezl Harrell is from here. He is born and raised in the United States. Luka, if he had an insult of that similar way, it might be like, first he's not speaking his native language. So the fact that he's not speaking his native language, but it's like Steven Adams. Do you remember when there was a controversy because he said like Russell Westbrook was a positive thing, right? But he called him like a monkey. Do you guys remember that? Am I still on the radio?
I don't remember that.
Somebody look it up. Steven Adams said like they were like that he was running around like a good monkey or something like that. And in New Zealand, that is not he was like, oh, sorry, I didn't know that had a racist connotation.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And so it kind of turned into a issue. I think it was like a post-game interview or something, and it was intended to be positive. Somebody look up that exact quote that he used, but that's an example of something that might not translate, right? Because that's a phrase that he said they use in New Zealand all the time in a positive way. And he's like, I wasn't raised in America. I'm not, aware of everything.
Quick little monkeys is what he said.
Yeah.
It was after Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, and he described the Warriors guards as quick little monkeys.
Yeah. And then everybody was like, uh-oh. Now, I don't think they did anything there, but that's an example of, to me, intent, right? Like, that was, first of all, he's foreign. But secondly, he wasn't intending it to be a negative. Bitch-ass white boy is all intended to be negative. Whereas, if somebody said, oh, that's a badass white boy, that wouldn't be like, if one of Luka's teammates, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, said, oh, he's a badass white boy. First of all, that's a funny reference now because he got called a bitch-ass white boy. But that's a use of the phrase in a positive way, right? The connotation is not anywhere near as negative.